This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, July 14th. It's about 8:03, 8:05 p.m. Tonight is a Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing and general meeting. There's a little side bet on tonight between me and Jeremy. Jeremy, I thought it was going to be an hour. Jeremy thinks it's going to be an hour and a half. So the over-under is now 15 minutes. Very light agenda. With Riley smiling.
Yes.
Right.
I'm with you, Mr. Chairman.
Me too, man. I got dinner waiting for me at home. Tonight, we're going to start a public hearing with continuation of public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the site to Darien Zoning Regulations, COZR number 3 -2020 business site plan number 225B, as in boy, special permit application number 312, 1897 Post Road LLC at 1897 Boston Post Road. I'm not going to read the rest of the information, okay?
Correct.
Because it's already in the record. Tonight, we're doing a continuation of this public hearing. I think Attorney Maslin for the applicant, who is the LLC, got basically through his whole presentation. We extended this hearing because I don't think Attorney Maslin and his client could hear the comments from the neighbors effectively enough. I think he's had an opportunity to see him in public and written, and maybe watch the tape after. Am I missing anything?
No, Mr. Warble joined the meeting, so we have 5 commission members here. And as Steve mentioned, this is a continuation from last week, which was July 7th. We received additional information, which we put on the town website, given to commission members. So we'll leave it to Mr. Maslin to continue his presentation.
Take it away, Mr. Maslin.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Robert Maslin, and I'm an attorney representing the applicant, 1897 Post Road LLC. I'm looking through the list and videos of people who are here. I see Joe Vaccaro, one of the principals. I think John is going to come at some point. Vaccaro.
John is here, Bob.
Okay, Jim and James Scatino. I know James is here. I saw his. Oh, there's John. Project architect Sarah Hungerback McCool is here. And Neil Olinsky from Malone and McBroom, who is one of the co-authors of the parking report, is here to answer questions if they come up about parking. We've already gone through our landscaping, so Sarah's here to answer questions as well. We received copies of written submissions from the 2 neighbors who spoke last time. The second of which was yesterday. And rather than try to submit 2 different responses, since many of the comments were similar, we submitted one letter electronically, and we also submitted this PowerPoint that I'm going to go through electronically as well. I submitted both by email today to Fred and Jeremy, and I believe they have since distributed them, and I don't know if they posted them, but I know eventually they'll get posted if they haven't been posted already. So what I thought I'd do is go through the photographs in our letter in sequence, and except for one diagram, and summarize our comments. And then toward the end of the presentation tonight, I have some additional items that don't really relate to photographs. All right, so we started with some photographs of the existing. Oh, by the way, this PowerPoint is an updated version of the PowerPoint we presented last week, and the only changes are we've added slides at the end, and I've also added title slides like the one you see on the screen now for each section of the original PowerPoint presentation. So everything else is the same. Now, as far as landscaping, what we've done is I've assembled and put into our reply letter photographs that show screening from various positions looking in different directions. Photo number 1 is taken from the west parking lot of the project site, looking toward the house at 39 Dickinson Road. The next photograph is toward the rear, toward the northwest portion of the project site, looking at the firehouse across the street, across Dickinson, and looking at the house at 39 Dickinson on the left side of the screen with the screening that is already there today. And photo 3 of the letter is taken from the northeast corner of the building, looking directly north. And what I'll point out here is you can see the house, the ridge line, or rather the edge of the roof, the rake, peeking up above the part of the screening. And then you have a little peek at the white solid fence that's in the screening for part of that common boundary. The next few are looking toward 34 Dickinson. This is taken from right around the entrance, the existing entrance drive to the project site, looking, I guess, northeast toward 34 Dickinson. And 34 Dickinson is behind this solid green vegetation here, pretty much in the center of the screen. The next is a little bit closer view of the same screening. This is from the northeast corner of the project property lines. And again, the screening here is pretty dense. Can't see the house. And then from photo 6 is from Dickinson, pretty much the entrance to the parking area behind the firehouse. Again, looking in the general, I guess, east-northeast direction. This line of screening extends down behind this garage. 34 Dickinson is behind this row of screening. So that's photograph number 6. Number 7, I took this picture from Dickinson. This is the front of 34 Dickinson, and I took this picture to see what the screening looked like looking at it from this direction. And you can see the firehouse peaks up over here, but that gives you a sense of how the site looks from Dickinson. I didn't go on to the property here. This is as close as I got. Now, I also wanted to just point out, and I have to go back into the original. This is slide number 4 from last. Oops. You still have to get used to this. From last week, I didn't duplicate this slide, but what I wanted to do was show you the distances involved. Obviously, 39 Dickinson abuts the project site here. The distance between this corner, the southwest corner of 34 Dickinson, and the northeast corner of the project site is 125 feet. If you go on the GIS system on the town website and use the straight line measuring function, and if you took a measurement from the southwest corner of 34 to the building, and this corner of the building is not going to change with the project, it's still going to be the closest toward 34. This is about 185 feet or so.
They get about how many feet? 125, 150?
About 185 feet.
185. Thank you.
The first dimension, corner to corner of the boundaries, that's 125.
Yes, I heard that. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And now back to, bear with me for a second while okay. So that's the story on the landscaping and the distances. Then we get to scale and density. And I thought these comments were...
Can I ask a question on landscaping?
Sure.
I went out to the site also, again. If you go to photo 1 or photo 2, and I think this might be a question that goes towards Sarah.
1 or 2 better for you.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
I correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, where the pods storage thing is on the right. If you go back to the other one, Bob, photo 1, where the pod storage thing is on the left, I think you have some new foliage going in there that is going to be a bunch of trees.
I've got a group of 3 Serbian spruce on the end. They were actually based to give screening to the house to the left from the building.
Okay. Now the other corner.
Pardon?
And now the other corner that's to the right in that photo, all those trees, are those the ones that you said are diseased and coming out and gonna get replaced?
From that area all the way to all along the back property line there, yes, all of those.
Okay, those, they're coming and they're gonna get replaced with the, not hardwoods, what do you?
Green giant arborvitae.
Yeah, the arborvitaes.
So all that stuff is, it's coming out because it's diseased or overgrown and you're gonna replace it with new fresh stuff?
We're going to do fresh stuff. Those trees at one point, they were topped. So they look somewhat, well, they look flat topped, kind of mushroom shaped. Since at some point they have gotten an insect called adelgid, which is very hard to get rid of, especially because people in the neighborhood, if they don't spray, it'll reinfect these trees. They're a very high maintenance tree at this point.
Okay. So that dense foliage is going to come out and get replaced with new that will become dense.
Yes, very dense.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do any other commissioners have any questions on screening and landscaping for Sarah before Bob moves on? Just raise your hand if you do. I'm getting a lot of no heads. Okay. Oh, you have a question, Larry?
Just one, and I know I watched the recording from last week's meeting, but can you just remind me of the height of the screening going in? And some of it was, I think it was arborvitaes had a tendency to grow rather quickly. Can you just remind me from my notes what the heights were?
Yes, I put green giant arborvitae. They're 8 to 9 feet tall and they grow 1 to 3 feet per year. And they keep their foliage all the way down to the ground. They're very dense.
Sarah, they spread out too so that they'll
they spread
grow together and become like a wall.
They spread out to 12 to 15 feet across, and I've placed them 8 feet on center.
Okay. All right. Okay, on the density, or rather not density, but the scale of the scale and density, I thought the best way to approach this would be to talk about the ridge height and the building height is measured under the regulations and compare that with what is possible on residential properties in the R1/3 zone. So what we have is a project with a 35-foot ridge height. And what's important is that 35 feet is it. There's no additional parapet above it because the roof itself acts as a screen for the mechanical equipment that's going onto a flat surface behind the upper portion of the sloped roof. So the ridge is 35. The measured height, meaning the midpoint between the highest eave and the highest ridge, is 32.5. That is the maximum allowed under Section 585 which is the inclusionary zoning incentive, and how that compares with residential properties. I put up on the screen a diagram that James Scatino put together for us. The upper part of this diagram, and it's I think the third last page in the letter. You have that on your system. He put together this typical building height diagram that shows you basically a 2-foot difference between average grade and the first floor, a fairly typical 10-foot first floor to ceiling, then interfloor space, and then the 9-foot floor to ceiling on the second floor, no third floor. And this will bring you to a 37-foot peak, a 23-foot eave, and a 30-foot midpoint. Typical modest house, 2 stories. It's not even a 2.5-story house. That'll get you to a peak that's 2 feet higher than our proposed peak. In the lower right-hand corner is the diagram taken from section 225, I think it is, of the zoning regulations, which basically tells you how to calculate building height with a couple of other things factored in. And then just for ease of reference, there's a copy of the area and bulk table. And in the R1 third zone, I just point out that the side yard can go down as close as 10 feet to the property boundary. So what this boils down to is a possibility without variances or anything of a 35-foot or 37-foot peak 10 feet from a property boundary. How that relates to this project is we're talking about a 35-foot instead of 37-foot and 50 feet away from the property boundary, and a full screening arrangement in the plant by way of a planting plan. So when you combine those factors, you find that this is really not out of scale with what can be built in the R1/3 zone, which is right next to this. The firehouse ridge height, the architect estimated it to be about 40 feet based on the number of courses of brick and the size of some features like doors and things. Just to be sure, we asked one of the engineers to go and pick it up, and it turned out that he measured it from the grade, not from the average grade, but from the grade alongside the west side of the building. He figured out that it was 38 feet approximately. So we're right in the ballpark there. We're still higher than, that's higher than our building by 3 feet. Again, showing that we're within the scale of the neighborhood. The other thing I wanted to mention was this photograph number 8 that I have on the screen. This is the existing HVAC unit that's on the north wall, which is the wall facing the residential property to the north. Oops. And that is not going to be there on the new building. All of the HVAC units are going to be fully screened, both visually and sound-wise, up on the roof behind the upper portion of the sloped roof. I already talked about the distances from the neighboring, the 2 neighbors' properties, and now I thought I would go through a couple of slides of other buildings in the neighborhood. This is the front of the firehouse. It has what looks like a little platform up here, might be where the siren used to be, or the horn. Again, this ridge height is 38 feet from the grade over here, but that's not averaged where you have the lower aprons along the garage doors in the front and the rear. But we're still below that 38 feet. This house under construction should be 30 feet. I don't know what the peak is. We couldn't get our hands on the elevations that would have shown us the exact footage there, but you can see that's a pretty good size house. It's up there. It's in the R1/3 zone, not the NB zone.
I can tell you on that the ground floor, that's a garage underneath a two-story house, and the concrete garage is at least 8 feet high.
And then 2 stories above it?
Agreed, yes.
Okay. All right, so that's quite high. Again, the point is that we're proposing a building that's not really out of scale. This picture has the west end of the firehouse building over here on the right, over here, and the existing building here, which is, right now, it's only 1 story, but we're going to come up, but we're not going to come up as high as this firehouse peak. And then we have the existing building with the Flaherty Plumbing building behind it. I guess that's the Flaherty Plumbing building, the white one. Again, you can see that that's higher. It's got a peak above the 2nd story, and we don't have an actual measurement on that, but the point to be made is we're kind of in between this building, the firehouse, and then 39 Dickinson is over here on the right side of the photograph. And we're going to come up, and we're not going to tower over that. We're going to be in line pretty much with generally the size of the buildings in the neighborhood. So that's the purpose of those photographs. Then so that all goes to density and scale. And then there were comments about parking, and
before you pivot,
you want to ask for questions on?
Yeah. Before you pivot, I also took a photo of 35 Dickinson Road. That's a brand new house that was built on that street. I sent a picture of that to Jeremy. That's also 2.5 stories, and it's one of the tallest buildings on the street, and it's also brand new. And just to note, we have no 97 Fitch and 35 Dickinson Road. We have no control as a P&Z to build those buildings. They're built as of right, and we never saw those approvals. But yeah, if you look on your map right there, that one right there, that's it. That's a brand new house.
Okay, and that's full 2.5 stories.
Well, 2.5 stories.
Okay. All right, and there was you said 97 was.
Well, that's 97 is your picture, which is photo 9.
Photo 9.
That we didn't have it. That never came in front of the commission either.
Photo 9. I don't know. I think
You had it up a second ago. We're fine. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to slow you down.
Steve, excuse me just a second.
Yes, sir.
The house that you're referring to, the new one on, I guess it's the corner of Fitch, east of the firehouse. Is that a single family house?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
It's in an NB zone though, right?
No.
No, it's R1.
R1/3.
Steve, the firehouse is now MU,
Right.
but previously it was R1/3.
Okay.
So the Dickinson Road was the I guess the boundary between R1/3 and B. Okay. So now we get any other questions on scale and height and all? Then one of the neighbors submitted this photograph. Was there a question?
Yeah, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Peter Ike, and I own the Flaherty Plumbing property.
Cool.
If there are any questions you have, I'm here.
We'll ask for public comment at the end, Peter. Thank you.
All right, very good.
This appears to be the firehouse over here, a little bit left of center. 39 over here on the right, and the project itself would be behind sort of this big tree here and a little bit to the right and behind it. And the church property, the Episcopal Church over here, is across the post road, right dead center in the photograph. We don't know when, we don't know when this photograph was taken, or where these cars came from. But one thing that I noticed, and John Vaccaro noticed because he goes by here multiple times a day, is that at any given time, it looks like the residents park in the street here. There's not enough activity at 1897 Post Road or the firehouse to explain parking on Dickinson Road. It seems that there's plenty of parking closer to the commercial buildings, and there's parking within the church property. So I sort of doubt that people are parking in Dickinson Road during the day and walking 2 blocks when there's parking closer to the businesses that they would be going to. We're speculating here. This might have been an event at the firehouse, which 1897 had obviously had nothing to do with. The parking study that was done, just a couple of comments on that. One, the parking consultants conducted their study based on industry standards, and they also referred to the Darien Zoning Regulations. And they actually showed peak parking demand under the industry standard for basically retail on the first floor and apartments upstairs, and looked at it both under the zoning regs and under the industry standards, and found that we are within the parking demand, whether you look at it one way or the other. And that means that there wouldn't be overflow parking, and that we have an adequate parking supply here. Nick, or rather Neil, is here to answer questions if you have any more specific questions for him. Just to kind of reiterate, what we're asking for is a 1-space reduction from the requirement if you took the regulations and made no discount for either the inclusionary zoning incentive or shared parking, which this would qualify for because there are mixed uses on the same site. So we're really talking about 1 space. We're also asking for a waiver of the loading space because this type of building doesn't need a place for a tractor trailer to back up and load and unload.
Can I just clarify, make sure I understand what you just said?
Sure. Go ahead, Larry.
So you said your study says it conforms to the parking needs, but we're 1 spot short. I'm just trying to understand what I heard there.
The conclusion is that the supply of 24 spaces is sufficient to meet the demand under an analysis based on industry standards for parking, based on retail use of the first floor and apartments upstairs. And also, it would meet the demand under the joint parking analysis. If you approached it under the Darien Zoning Regulation, I think it's 905 for shared parking, which is a separate regulation from the incentive, inclusionary zoning incentive. So the bottom line is there's adequate supply for the demand that's going to be presented by this development.
But, Larry, in straight terms, if you use the Darien regulations without the shared agreement, they're 1 short.
We're 1
They
short.
could take a couple of trees and stick in another parking space if they wanted to. But they're only 1 short as per the letter of the law of the Darien zoning regs. Correct? Correct. Jeremy's agreeing and nodding his head yes.
Right.
So that's why it's 1 short.
I'm following along now, thanks.
And the other thing that I would note, and this will kind of segue into my next point, and that is, regardless whether you have 5 apartments, 3 1-bedroom and 2 2-bedroom, which gives you a total of 7 bedrooms, or 7 one-bedroom apartments, the parking requirement is the same because in this zone, the residential portion of the parking is based on the total number of bedrooms, not the total number of apartment units. So
Understood.
whether we have 7 apartments or 5 apartments mixed where 2 of them have the extra bedroom, the parking numbers come out exactly the same. And that leads me to, well, let me just, are there any other questions about parking before I address the inclusionary zoning aspect?
I see no one nodding. I keep moving.
Okay.
You have 14 minutes left.
Okay. Now, the inclusionary zoning. First of all, the inclusionary zoning regulations already exist. And there was some discussion about the text amendment and whether this project should be permitted to, or the regulation should be amended to allow this project to have basically a 3rd floor and 1 parking space less than what the regulations require. But if we reconfigured the apartments so that we had a total of 7 one-bedroom apartments, everything would be the same. The parking count would be the same. The building would look exactly the same. But that 7th unit, because it's 1 more than the maximum density for the site under the NB zone regulations, before you get to the inclusionary zoning regs, that extra unit triggers the inclusionary zoning incentives, which provides for a 3rd floor, and it provides for the reduction in parking. So whether we do this as 7 one-bedroom units, or you do the text amendment that we're asking for, you end up with the same building, the same look, the same parking requirement, and the same amount of activity. The reason,
Same square footage.
same square footage, same volume, everything.
Right.
And the reason for the text amendment is to allow us larger units, which no one seemed to have a problem with during the first presentation we made. And it would allow us to trigger the incentives, the inclusionary zoning incentives, without going to 7 units. But again, we end up with 7 bedrooms total. So the reason why we're preferring, or the developers preferring to have a mix, has more to do with the stability of the tenants, a reduction in the turnover. People tend to stay longer if they have larger units, and particularly if they have a 2nd bedroom. People become more attached to the neighborhood when they live in it longer.
I think we understand that, Bob.
Okay, and I just wanted to make that clear.
That's fine. I got it. We got it.
There's a qualitative reason why we're doing this, and we think it's better for the neighborhood. And finally, just pure density. Density is typically in terms of the number of dwelling units. Here, the peculiarity is the NB zone has just a flat number 6, whether it's a big lot, a small lot, something in between. And we're trying to, we're asking for a text amendment to try to get into a different market that would be better for this neighborhood and better for the town overall. So that's what I have for you tonight. And
did you want to speak about paragraph D in your discussion? Let's go through with the incentives of the Section 8, or did you already talk about that?
well, I kind of did.
Okay, that's fine. That's
I
fine.
kind of did. What I think I can just add is, you mentioned it last time. This is not
It's not Section 8.
necessarily Section 8, and the inclusionary does not get a subsidy. Period.
Correct.
Affordable
That's
units
fine.
don't get a subsidy, and that's really it. And opposing or denying an application based on a concern that Section 8 housing is going to go in would just be illegal, and I know you wouldn't do that. So
Yeah, we got
but-
it. Okay,
but
thank you.
that's it. That's all I have. And as I said, Neil is here if you have parking questions. Sarah's here for the landscaping if anybody thinks of another question. And John and Joe are here if there are questions about the overall objectives of the project. So thank you very much.
Okay, I have no questions. If any commissioners got a question, just raise your hand and I'll recognize you and you can turn on your microphone. I'm getting heads no. Okay. Would anybody from the general public like to speak to this application?
Yes, this
Go
is
ahead.
Sheehan. I'd like to make a comment.
Sure, go right ahead. Just say your name and your address for the record, please, sir.
Sure. Sheehan Murphy, 39 Dickinson Road, directly
Okay.
north of the property. Just a couple comments. My main comments are on record and have been addressed here. As it relates to parking, I would note that if anyone has been to this property on a Sunday or when there's a funeral happening at the church, you know that the 1897 property is used as overflow for the church today. Not officially, of course, but there are no less than 5 to 7 cars there on most Sundays. Probably not the case now with COVID, but that's worth noting. And so when you see the picture, to confirm this with Mr. McDonald, but that was submitted, I'm pretty sure that was a funeral or church event that led to that overflow. And that's when the current property is utilized very minimally. So the spots in the parking lot were filled up by churchgoers and so I want to note that first on the parking. On the landscape, my only comment there is the proposal is 8 to 9 foot green giants that grow 1 to 3 feet a year. So we're talking full screening taking 10 years. If there's an opportunity to plant more mature trees there, that would mitigate that concern.
Okay.
And this one last comment was about height of the building. The comparisons were made to single family homes in the neighborhood and the firehouse. Obviously, the firehouse is a special use in terms of the single family homes in the neighborhood. I just want to point out that there's a difference between a single family home and a multi-unit mixed use development. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Would anybody else in the general public like to speak to this application? Mr. Flaherty Plumbing Ownership, gentleman does.
Yeah, this is Peter. Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I just want to voice that I have absolutely no problem with this development, and I think it would be smart for the town and the neighborhood to go ahead with it. I mean, when I first bought my property 15 years ago, which I've occupied since then, it took a year and a half for me to get my window and door store approved by whoever it was, and it was just a pain in the butt. And I don't understand why anytime somebody wants to do something good, there's so many people, raising flags and trying to put the brakes on it. I mean, if a affordable housing developer came in here, he could put some monstrosity on there that would just do everything that you guys are so afraid of. And then these buildings are beautiful. So that's my point. And then if you also bring up that house down on Dickinson, that is, I think it's number 35, but it's brand new, that ridge line's at least 35 feet. And then that modular thing they just put up is probably close to 40. And there's no parking for either of those buildings. I don't see why anybody would want to put the brakes on progress here.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Would anybody else in the general public like?
And Mr. Murphy in number 39, he's got a maple tree that drops limbs into my property that I've had to pick up that's in really bad shape. I think maybe we should cut that tree down.
Okay.
It's a big tree. It's dead. It's been dead for 15 years.
Yep. Somebody looks at that. Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Would anybody else in the general public like to speak to this application? And you have just you checking the chat too, right?
Yeah, no, in the chat.
Okay.
Yes,
Do
we
any
have any
commissioners have any final questions before we look to close this presentation?
Commissioners.
I don't think anybody say anything. Bob, you all set if we close?
I think we're set. John, do you have anything to add?
I would just say that the building itself, when we started looking at it as 7 units, and we quickly realized that actually from a rental perspective, you actually get more rent on these smaller units, but you have a lot of friction because people move in and move out. It's pretty transient. And our experience at 1950 and 1958 is we haven't had a lot of excessive turnover. There's some people that moved in there when we opened, and they're still there, and it's worked out pretty well. We have gotten people that are there or that wanted to go there and wanted a 2-bedroom. We thought if we have 5 units and two bedrooms, which is the reason for the text amendment, that would be better for the neighborhood because we end up with people that are a little bit, and Steve, you already kind of were onto this, but it's a little bit more stable and they'll stay longer and they'll be part of the community. So that was the logic to, essentially downsizing the number of units.
Understood. No, and I think, I mean, our town is definitely looks for affordable units. We're not chasing moratorium ports, but I think affordable units are important, and that comes into a bigger issue. But we appreciate it. And I do recognize that you live along Rings End Road, and every single morning you probably drive up the road on the way to Roost and stare at this building. I'm all set. I would entertain a motion to close from, I think George Riley is waving his hand. Yep. We have a motion to close. Can we get a second? Kara, is that you? It's a second from Kara. All those in favor? Okay.
5-0 to close the hearing.
Yeah, and we'll listen, Jennifer.
Yep.
Jeremy won the first bet. It's only 45 minutes for Bob. So
Thank you, everyone.
thank you. Vote hearing closed. Okay, moving on to the next item. We're going to go into the general meeting. Deliberation possible decisions for the following. Proposed amendments to the Darien Zoning Regulation, COZR number 2-2020 business site plan application, number 308, special permit application, number 312, Baywater 34, OKHS LLC, 34 Old King Highway South. I hope you don't mind. I don't need to read the rest of it. This is the small house that's on Old King Highway. Baywater Properties and their subsidy is looking to demolish the house and build a new 2-story house with a roof terrace.
No, this is commercial. When you say house, it looks like a house, but it's the office building.
It's a house. I apologize. I read through the submission looking for typos. Yes, and I did. I found one. In page 4, item 13, you need a space between the word May and 28.
Yes, thank you.
Got it. Everything else, I think it covers everything that's in here. And I just, for my own repeating thing, if us commissioners can remember the next time around, I want to make sure we talk about signage for things like this and waypoints. That's not in here because it never came up. But I think
Wayfinding.
Wayfinding. If you remember, I said once before, there's a sign that says parking, a green arrow this way. We didn't, it's not in this resolution because we didn't do anything. But, and do we have 3 meetings on this? Really, 2.
No, 2. June 2nd and June 9th. What paragraph are you looking at? And then we deliberated last week. The hearing notices, there were 2 hearing notices.
June 2nd, June 9th, and July 27th,
Yep.
and July 7th.
Yes, July 7th with the deliberations.
Correct. Okay.
So two hearings and 1 deliberation.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Any questions, typos? George Riley, your microphone's on.
Yeah, I think I have a typo, but I could be proven wrong. On the second page, at the bottom, paragraph 1, bullet 1, this refers to structures not be subject to the minimum lot width requirement where the rear building line program applies. Program, is that? I think it should be like regulation or something, shouldn't it?
Yeah, regulations, George, regulation's probably a better word than program. Even though program is
program
probably what
used?
the
Honestly, I don't know.
let's use regulation, or where the rear building line.
I thought it might say program because that refers back to the appendix.
Building line restriction.
There you go.
Fine. I mean, if it's a term of art, I don't want to fight it.
No,
but-
restriction.
Okay.
That's better. Anything else, George?
No, that was all I had, I believe.
Are you good?
I had the same thing about program. I also sort of have an issue with this revision clarification slashing that we're doing throughout that, because I'm not really sure what that means. It's either a revision or a clarification. So which one is it?
Let me see what the applicant put in their materials,
I
but I
think
think
they
that's the
put
way
the
the
same
applicant presented it.
That's in the first part. I think that's exactly what it is. So Carrie, you're talking about like page 3, number 6?
It's throughout the document.
Okay.
Because a revision means one thing and a clarification means something different. And I'm not, maybe at times it's a revision and at times there's a clarification being made, but
Well, you might revise to clarify.
that's true.
Yeah. It came straight out of the narrative in the applicant's application,
Okay.
where they didn't know if it was a revision or if a clarification, because I think in the zoning book in the back, when you date it back to 1950 or 1960, it was one way versus another way.
Yeah, that's the way it was put forth in the application materials. So that's what the wording Fred and I used. Certainly the commission can call it a revision and or clarification, but the revision / clarification is what Bob Maslin put in his narrative.
Right, which is, but this is what we care about. All the findings up front, it's fine. Okay. So there's your answer.
No, it's not. Okay.
Larry, any questions? Jim, any questions? Larry's no, saying no, you're saying no. Okay. Can we get a motion to approve as amended? George Riley, is that you again? Yep, it is. There he is. Larry, Warble with Kara seconded, is that right?
No.
She did not second. Larry Warble with the beard? There we go. All's in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Yep.
5-0.
5-0. There we go. There we go. Next. Number 3. Coastal site plan review number 165A, dump prevention application number 173A, Lawrence Stevens, 14 Raymond Street, proposal to construct the dock. This is the dock that started in January 21st, 2020, but it actually started in September of 19.
Yes.
Right.
And they had to get their permits from the prior
Right, from
other
DEP.
agencies.
I mean,
Simpler times.
I read the whole thing a bunch of different times. There was a little bit of email back and forth. My only question for the planning zoning staff, if you go to item C on page 5, which is got to do with the berthing, and are we going to send somebody from your staff, the zoning enforcement officer, to have him move his boat if it's in the wrong spot?
I think that you're right, Steve. That was the question that came up today was, does the commission include that DEEP condition for just that reason? Is at that point, we would be enforcing it, versus if the neighbor sees a boat improperly berthed, we could acknowledge that that was a condition of the state. And while the neighbor said, I'll agree to this, if that's included, I guess that's the question, we can reference it, but leave it up to the state to enforce, just like any other conditions of their approvals, whether it's them or the Army Corps, we do not enforce whatever conditions unless they're part of your resolution.
I've got no interest in Dave Keating going over there at 8 o'clock in the morning until the guy moves his boat.
I would agree.
Yeah, I do. And I'm sorry I wasn't at the meeting last week, but that, that's what I said during the hearing when, said that, I mean, that when you get to that point, the boats aren't even in Darien anymore, right? I mean,
right.
Just the footings for the dock, or not the footings, but just where they're hitting the land. So I think that's the agreement between the two parties. I don't think it's our business. And I think paragraph F saying you have to, just comply with all other state. I mean, if DEP says that should be there, then that's theirs, but it's not. I don't think it's on us to do that.
I don't think it's on us either. And also, what about the 5 Mile River Commission? Were they part of this?
Yeah, I don't think they would enforce.
Okay. I personally have no interest in having our staff have to go out there and tell him to move his boat.
Right.
So
If I could comment.
Go right ahead, George.
On page 3, paragraph 9, I thought nicely handled this by saying a copy of the modified DEEP approval is hereby incorporated by reference. So
right.
It's there, it's included. I don't think you need to go any further.
Okay.
So what you're saying, I guess the sense from Larry, George, and Steve is to remove condition C.
Correct. I don't want us enforcing it. We have enough to do. Whoever agreed to it, let them do it.
About that as well.
They can do it. Anybody have a problem with that? Jim Rand, you're my resident shipping guy in Rivers.
I did not see it as I did not see C as written as obliging us to undertake any enforcement action. I just saw it, and I'm not a lawyer, but I just saw it as a reflection of, or a reinforcement, that's not a bad word, of what was agreed to, or what was agreed to with DEEP. I don't have any problem with it in there. If you think it ought to be taken out, I'm okay with that too.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I can see someone calling up and saying, Jeremy, the boat's in the wrong spot, have him move it, and because it's item C, so I don't like it. Kara, do you have any perspective on that from Larry's perspective? You don't care? Right.
I agree with Larry and George, and I guess I'm a little less agnostic than Mr. Rand in that I don't think we should be stipulating to something that was a private agreement between 2 residents.
All right, so
Got it. Thank you.
that
We'll
out.
remove condition C.
Okay,
Okay, good. Any other changes?
that's the only thing I saw. I entertain a motion to approve. Sounds like Jim, Kara Gately, thank you. And Jim Rand, you got a second this one, right?
I will
There you go,
second.
that's a second. There you go. All those in favor?
George, 5-0.
Yeah, I'm making up for time, Number 3 up for bid. What is this? This is site plan application number 223 and amendment 2, Glen Liquors Inc., 1089 Boston Post Road. This is the liquor store inside the old Kennedy's. Okay, I read it, and this is another one. Maybe I'm missing something. Didn't we do 2 nights on this one? It only says time and place 8 p.m.
Brett, do you remember off the top of your head if we had 1 night of public hearing? I thought it was just 1 night. It was a long night.
I'm pretty sure it was 1.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 1 night.
Okay,
We can
that's
double
fine.
check on that, but I'm pretty sure it was 1.
I think you're right. The only another item I had was, and I went to school in Ohio, so excuse me, we called them package stores in Ohio. I didn't think they called them package stores around here. So in
Long Island,
paragraph, what's that?
How long have Steve, you
In
should.
paragraph 3, it says in practice many package stores. Can we just say liquor stores?
Just to be consistent.
It's an old Connecticut term.
I think in a lot of the Connecticut, I think in our regulations, it talks about package stores.
All right, I'm wrong. That's fine.
Because wasn't the previously, that they cite to the previous regulations that had been revised however many years ago about the 100 feet or whatever it was restriction? Wasn't that on package stores?
Okay.
I don't know. I
All
could
right.
do
1,500 feet, yeah.
And right now there are signs on the side of the building that says no parking.
That's correct.
Those signs are coming down, so they're actually in violation as it is today.
Yes.
And there's only 6 parking spaces.
Mr. Gleason at the hearing said 6 or 7. A little
Okay.
difficult. As referenced, Kara referenced just now, I just looked it up. It says in the old reg, package liquors.
So it's both.
There you go. It's a clarification slash.
All right.
Oh, and I'm sorry, another thing I had was, number D is David, on page 4. Are you saying there that they have to have permits like over at Mechanic Street? Say they don't
Well,
have
when
any. It's like mom dropped me off. I'm before that we're back.
Right. There's, in a case like this, certainly, I think it's more for informational purposes. One of the issues we get into is when we say park elsewhere and everyone's parking elsewhere, we don't even know where they end up. So in a case like this, there may or may not even be stickers available for them. I don't know.
Correct.
So Wilder Gleason made the representation, like the employees will park off-site. That was not the commission, that was the applicant.
But can they park in 2-hour free parking at Grove Street lot, moved every 2 hours?
Technically they could, sure.
But so then what's he gonna prove to evidence? What evidence is he gonna give to you?
Whatever he
Within
wants.
2 weeks of the
Right.
openings of evidence?
I would say if let's say Mr. Hoken could write a letter, dear Mr. Ginsburg, on Tuesday, July 14th, we had 4 employees show up. Mr. Jones parked at the grocery lot. Mr. Smith parked on street. Whatever it is,
Okay.
that's evidence. That's all we need to understand that,
Okay.
number one, they're complying, and to get a feeling for where these people are. If they're taking the bus, the train,
Okay.
whatever.
So
it is,
you're not
walking.
required to get permits from the county?
No, because that would be a condition outside their control.
Okay.
If we said you have to get a sticker from the town, and there's no stickers,
Okay.
that's a problem.
But if you can enforce that, it's fine.
Yep, we can enforce this.
That's it for me. Anybody ever had questions on this one? Let's go ladies first. Kara? Jim
I
ran
guess I
chicken.
have a similar question to D, which is previous applicants would describe with their special permits how they were going to provide for off-site employee parking. And I get it, some of those applicants had more set hours where all the employees were there, say like for camps, that all the employees came at 7:30 a.m. and whatever it was, and they all left at the same time. Where I suspect the employees at this establishment will come and go in shifts. So shuttle busing and different things may not be a feasible option. I can't see how this is, this to me seems really troubling to enforce as is.
He says he can do it. You're talking about D, right? You said D, right?
Yeah. Because there's no
Yeah,
agreement
that's what
with anyone
it's the
else
same
as to
thing.
where to
He
park.
says he can
There
do
was
it.
no sort of,
Well,
no
what if we just took out the
details
second
given about
sentence?
what it would
Kara?
be. I'm sorry?
That's fine by me. I take out the second sentence. I mean, do we try the butcher shop to say where his employees are?
Yeah, well, it becomes a whole, is one day they might be one place, the next day
Correct.
they might. So if we just say in condition D, if the commission wants to just say, leave in the first sentence, all employees must park off site and leave it at that,
That's what I
that would work.
I just
Or
don't
you
know
could just say nothing.
What does that mean exactly?
It means not one of the 6 parking spaces.
why don't we, because I think with that whole shared parking lot and, you know, the joint parking agreement and, you know, all these different side deals, I think maybe being more specific about saying employees are not permitted to park in the 6 dedicated spots or whatever it is, because it's hard to delineate the site because it's sort of one amalgamous sort of.
Or one option,
Get rid of something too.
right, or one option for the commission is saying nothing and just letting people, you know, if they want to take the parking space. So I leave it to the commission is.
Sure, it's almost self-enforcement.
So what you could say is all employees of the business shall not park in the 6 on-site parking spaces. Is that what?
Shall be required to park off-site and not on the 6 existing parking spaces.
You don't have to say this, just off-site, because the 6 parking
Just
spots
off-site.
are the ones on site. So if you say
Can
off-site,
they park in the Darien Sports Shop spots?
no.
Well, they can park if they want to, but Vicaro during sports is going to kick them out.
Yeah.
We don't have any jurisdiction over that. They can park whatever the hell they want. The only thing we have
They can't park
jurisdiction
wherever
on as a
they
town
can't park wherever the
is
hell
the
they
Grove Street lot. I mean, plus they might not even take trains. You know, they might not even take. If I worked there, my mother dropped me off when I was 14. I worked at the hardware
But
store.
you work in a liquor store.
I worked at the hardware store. You moved the boxes.
This is
When
the
your
one-
son's working there, you'll see. All right, we're good with that. Any other questions?
Kara makes a great point, but it just circles back to the same conversation we've now had
Right.
several months.
Yep.
There's just not enough parking in this part of Darien. And we got to get our planning hats on at some point with the rest of the town and address that. But we don't want to hold every individual applicant hostage because they're a parking spot or 2 short. Because that's going to hurt, as you said before, Steve, we want people walking around buying things.
Great.
So
There's a parking car. It doesn't walk around. Okay. Anybody else? George, you're.
Well,
Yeah.
just on that point, it seems to me, as I recall, the building, whatever this address is, owns the 6 parking spots, and that's why they're not part of the joint parking agreement.
Right.
So it's going to be the tenant's interest in keeping those spots available for customers. And seems to me they should be able to do what they want to with those 6 spots if they own them. But I think we know what they're going to want to do, and that's to keep them open. But I think, you know, your language is fine as you stated it. They can park off-site. 2 quick nits on the name of this place. On page 2, number 7, it should be Glen Liquors plural. And
Yes.
on page 4, C, Glens should not be possessive.
Thank you.
Just so you know, I read it.
There you go. Jim Rand signed off. Larry signed off. Kara signed off. Okay.
Nothing.
Entertain a motion to approve from Jim Rand. Your microphone's on and you have nothing.
I move that the resolution be approved
As amended.
as amended.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second? Yeah, Larry's a second. All those in favor? Bingo. 5-0. There we go, 5-0. I'm back on track. I got 8 minutes left, 7 minutes left. What do we got to do next? We're not gonna make it. No shot. All right, guys. Kara's smiling. All right, we're moving into deliberation only on the following. Coastal site plan review number 157A is an Apple flood stem prevention application number 162A as an Apple landfilling and regrading application number 481 Michael and Deborah Brennan, 22 Seagate Road, proposal to raise the existing single-family dwelling and build a new house generally the same location, new driveway, stormwater management system, and former related site development activities within the regulated areas. This is the site that's on Holly Pond. That's towards the end of Seagrate. When you go down, it's to the left. It's has a lousy driveway. but the guy thinks it's gonna work. To get into his house, he bought a piece of land on the other side of the house to be able to get his the square footage in there, or I think it's an illegal lot, right? It's
It's illegal. No, it's undersized, but it complies. The proposal complies. One of the issues here was that letter of map revision, which he's waiting on.
Right,
Remember
right,
that?
yeah. He had the letter of map revision, which they had the race engineering woman, professional, come in and say, it has to do with the basement or not the basement.
Correct.
I mean, it's tight. We asked him to move the house a little bit to the left, and he couldn't. So he's going lot line to lot line to lot line. Not allowed to have a basement until he gets the thing. It's all in compliance, right?
Correct.
Questions, comments, concerns? Anybody want to go first? Just speaking. Jim Rand's fine. Karen, go ahead.
No, I had a question.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We don't have to get into, it's a question, not a statement. Do we have to get into the basement issue? Or is it, if he gets his change, he gets the basement, if he doesn't, he doesn't. Our action doesn't have to cover that.
Correct.
That's correct. We'll mention something in the draft resolution saying if he doesn't get the letter of map revision, he'll have to change the basement to a crawl space because you can't have basements in the flood zone.
Yeah.
And that would be how we would propose to handle it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Lady Kara, want to say something?
Yes, and I just for my memory, did the fire marshal or anyone sort of look at the driveway and sign off? I don't know if residential properties have to do that, but to your point of with that driveway, and I know for multifamily units, we spend, we do look at whether fire engine and other kind of first responder vehicles will be able to access the site and safely turn around. But I'm not an expert in turning radius of fire engines or anything.
No. Did the fire engine does not have to go in there or fit in there?
Yeah.
The only regulation we have is they have enough parking spaces on the property, and they have that because you can park 2 in the garage and 2 there.
Yeah.
You can park a mini in there. You can park one of those smart car things in there.
Right.
It's a car. It's
Right.
that happened to the guy. What's the name of that street?
You mentioned property, I couldn't recall.
It's with a G, Fenmeyer or something like that. It's on resale. It's gonna be hard, but it
That's
is
not
what
our
it is.
Okay.
It's not our problem.
No. All right, that's all I have.
George, you good? Larry, you good? So we'll instruct staff to write up a
Draft for July 28th.
draft approval of this house for July 28th.
Got it.
Okay. The next is flood beneficial application number 228B as boy, Charles L. Trushner, Jr., 5 Tokenie Trail. Proposed to construct new additions to existing residence, including garage and covered walkway to expand their northern garage. This is a guy that's building a garage on a house that already has a garage. He's going to connect his new garage to his old garage by a covered walkway. He's got plenty of coverage. He's got plenty of setbacks. And we saw it because it's near the water and it's in Tokenie.
It's in the flood zone.
Yeah, the garage is going to have smart vents. It's going to have a 3-foot knee wall, concrete, base that you can build on with the smart fence going in and out. That's basically it. It's pretty straightforward. It's just the guy building, I was going to have 4-car garage, right? Any questions, comments, concerns? Jim Rand saying no. George Riley's saying no. The bearded guy in the middle, the bear, smiling. Kara's smiling. Everybody's smiling tonight. I'm getting out of here soon. So we'll instruct staff to write up a
Draft resolution for July 28th.
Okay. What happened to minutes? The minutes are down the bottom?
Yeah.
All right. Deliberations only on the following if the public hearing was closed. We're now going to deliberate on the 1897 International Tile property that John Picard, we just closed the hearing. I looked at the design of the plans and the architect that did a PowerPoint on last time. This thing to me looks like a single family house. I mean, there's single family houses in our town that are bigger than this. They got rave reviews from the architectural review board. I think we talked about it early on, the changing of the text amendment to switch it from 1,000 square feet to 1,200 square feet. I think is excuse my word, but I think it's a no-brainer. I think that's fine. The other text amendment was minor, that had to do with the density, or that was the extra unit.
This was the, to clarify, the incentive unit. So it was, there were two
Right,
related,
yeah. There was
two
the
related
incentive.
zoning amendments.
Yeah. And as it's, I'm going to get into it later in the chairman's report, so I don't want to get into it, but one of our goals in town is to add more affordable housing. I think over the last 20 years, if you remember, we did that report, which 31% of our projects are multifamily-based affordable housing. We're not, I've said it a million times, we're not chasing moratorium points to get a moratorium not to build it. This is going to be a 20% affordable project if it gets approved. I'm not really concerned personally with the height of the building. I think the roof line looks great. I think it's as tall as the Flattery Plumbing, which is next door. It looks like it's going to be smaller than the house that's at 19 Seagate. It looks like it's smaller than the fire station. And it looks the same exact height as the building across the street, which Vaccaro built. There's a ton of screening back there. You know, I'm in favor. I think they did a really nice job. Anybody want to go next? Larry, your microphone's on. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, I'd echo everything you just said. You know, we had an applicant in front of us a couple weeks ago saying, there's only one place I can find to put my store, and it's right here. So now we're gonna get a few more places. That's a pretty, you know, that's a part of town that frankly looks like it got stuck in the 40s, right? So it's, you know, to bring it up a half a century would be nice too. Get some, you know, positives, some more apartment space as people are starting to move out. You know, everyone needs a place to rent now. We got people coming from the city, so it's more space. And I just think overall it's going to help the community out to have a nicer facility of that nature.
Thank you. Karen, want to go next?
Sure. I definitely agree with everything Larry said. I do think there's more need for, you know, housing diversity and additional, you know, housing, whether it be, you know, rentals, 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom. I think it's also ideal in that it's sort of a mixed use development in that there's retail, perhaps office space, and residential close to, you know, the bus line that runs on the post road, walkable to train stations, walkable to beaches, to shopping, churches, schools. So I think it's really makes a lot of sense, the location. I understand the concerns of the neighbors, but I think it being that a neighbor is developing it, there'll be added consideration and sort of, I would suspect, some sort of pride, you know, between them kind of figuring things out in terms of screening and, you know, different things that can be done to maybe alleviate some of those concerns. And I did appreciate Attorney Maslin's, you know, height sort of comparisons between residential, you know, homes in that are 1/3 zone, the fire department and other commercial buildings in the area, since it is a mixed use area. I guess the only concern I have is I'm sorry, it's parking. That area, I don't know, people park on the post road, and if you're ever driving on it, you know, it gets a little like that second lane becomes a parking lane sometimes, and I don't think it's supposed to. So that would be my concern, but I agree with Larry. I think we have to maybe be a little flexible because I think it's a mixed use development. It sort of meets a lot of the, things we're concerned about in our plan, our plan of development and conservation. So, and I agree. I think it looks beautiful from the plans, and the buildings they've already, sort of developed in town are really beautiful. So.
Thank you. Jim Rand, your mic is open.
I've lived here over 70 years. I went to Henley School. I've traveled from H&L Chevrolet, which is the vicinity where I grew up, to Henley School, passing through Norotan continuously. It's always impressed me as an afterthought. I think what the Vaccaros have contributed to is to making it the beginning of a little village. I mean, it's not the Corbin development by any stretch of the imagination, but now you've got a half a dozen little shops that you can walk around. And in terms of the plan of development and whatever it's called, I think it's a good idea, and I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Thank you. George, any last comments?
I agree. I think it's a win-win aesthetically, certainly, and adding residential units, one of which will be affordable, I think is all good. Like Mr. Rand, I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I'm still trying to get over the loss of the Puritan. There's all kinds of goodies I could get there. But anyway, time moves on, I guess. Parking does not particularly concern me. I think there'll be very few occasions when they're going to need more than their allotted slots. I think Mr. Murphy has been heard, and I know he had already talked with the owner, Mr. Vaccaro and company, so he's going to get good screening. I have no doubt of that. So I have to say the one thing that where that new home on Fitch came from, Mr. Hickson's property, I mean, I would have loved to have had some say about the scale of that one, but obviously we didn't have any say in it. So the scale is, I think it's going to make this new property look just fine. So I'm all for it.
So we'll instruct staff to draft a positive report, a positive resolution to approve
For the 28th.
for the 28th, which is 2 weeks from today. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Sounds like we're all in 100% agreement. Next, we have approval of minutes from June 23rd. That was a couple of weeks ago, is that right? The first thing is a resolution, which we can't touch, which is the Sykes resolution. The next one's another resolution we can't touch. The third one's a resolution we can't touch. Resolution we can't touch.
The hearing starts on page 31.
Okay. Raymond Street, all that stuff. I always look for my name and see if I said anything that I didn't say. I think I'm good. Anybody have any questions, comments, changes to this one?
Really, I'm not speaking much during these things.
That's why I try to get everybody a little bit of light so you get to give your name or something like.
Seconding plenty of motions.
What's that, George?
I said, Mr. Warble seconding plenty of motions.
There you go. If there's no questions, comments, or typos, I will tell you that these guys do a good job with these things now. We're thinking much better. I'm entering a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Karen does that. Seconded by Mr. Warble. You're on the scoreboard, Mr. Warble. All those in favor? 5-0. Next, Cameron's report. Do you usually go first and I go second?
I can go first if you want.
Why don't you go, if you mind, we're gonna switch the agenda. Jeremy's gonna go first.
Okay.
In case you say anything that sparks my memory.
Okay. I wanted to touch a little bit. It's
5
been
minutes.
a few months since the commission's authorized me to approve outdoor seating, restaurants, outdoor retail sales. There's been a number of, and you've seen it driving through town. Certainly some are more prominent than others, the Goose, the Sugar Bowl. We've had lately a couple exercise places that are considering doing some outdoor exercise now that good weather's here. And we've had a couple people talk about the potential for drive-in movies, again, temporary. Everything right now we're approving is until September 8th. What we're going to do is come back to the commission in early September and see if you wish to extend your temporary approvals even further. Nobody knew in March how long we'd be doing this. So certainly at our September 1st meeting, we'll put this on the agenda for a formal decision by the commission in terms of extending restaurants, outdoor retail sales, and outdoor activities like what's going on at Vibe Fitness on Tokenique Road, or what's soon going to be happening at Pure Bar at 800 Post Road. So a lot of outdoor things, and we'll see more and more.
What's going on with the fitness guy? It's like Essential Fitness across the Duchess?
Yeah, they did not ask for any outdoor activity. So the other thing I wanted to mention, which we'll probably get more into either in a couple weeks or in September, is it looks like there's going to be a special session of the legislature, and we're monitoring that to see if any issues related to zoning and housing may come up. I was on the conference call today, and it could come up, and the changes they proposed could be significant to the overall statutes relating to zoning. So we'll continue to monitor. We have been monitoring it, myself and Fred, and we'll let you know what might be of importance to this commission in terms of what you need to do as part of your activity and big picture as well. We'll keep you in the loop on that.
I want to touch on that. You good?
That's
okay. A couple quick items for me, and I think I only have 4 minutes left. I think it was 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, and if I said this once already, please tell me I already said it once. But I had a conference call with the 5 chairmen of the local towns that we call our peer towns of their schools. It was Buchanan, Westport, Wilton, Darien, and Greenwich. The planning zoning chairman from Greenwich reached out to me and wanted to have a Zoom call or speak. And then the chairman for the Westport one wanted to get involved, and then all of a sudden it ended up being all 5 of us. But first, they set an agenda. They called the Council of P&Z Chairman of Southwestern Connecticut. It was a nice call. We're supposed to have them once a month now. What I will tell you is, and I did tell this to Jeremy because it's a little bit of a pat on the back. Those 4 towns look to us saying that we're doing a great job. They want to model what Darien's doing. I've been on the commission for a while, but Jeremy and Fred and Dave, those guys they look to us for what we do with affordable housing. They look to us for our zoning code that we just redid. They looked to us for a new project. They're also impressed with us with our their 830G moratoriums. I'm not a guy that likes to take. I like to be humble. I don't like to people say, "Oh, you're doing a great job," because I don't know what we're doing so great, but they think we are. They actually the one moment from Greenwich. Mighty was on the phone call last week and is in our Zoom or in our meetings a lot too. Really nice people. The point of that is one of the things that was on our agenda is what Jeremy just alluded to. There is there's a thing out there. It's an organization. Is that what it's called?
Organization might be the wrong word, but a group that's entitled the cause Desegregate CT.
Okay, so it's called Desegregate CT. I don't really consider myself a political person. I mean, yes, we were all elected to do this, but this is getting into politics. I think as a commission, I think we are apolitical. That's the way it's always seemed to be to me, because we don't really care if there's lights at the high school if you're a Democrat or a Republican. But this seems to go down the political item. They have the woman that runs it is somewhere near Sarah Brennan. I don't know her from Adam. I don't know anything about her, but maybe some other people know her name. She's leading the charge. They have a website. Supposedly have a big following. Jeremy just talked about the special session. They have a platform that we got a memo of where there's 10 things that they want to do. And it's got to do with fees. And the big thing is to wipe out single family residential zoning in the state of Connecticut. So you can put anything you want in any place you want it. That's the way.
Two family anywhere.
Two family anywhere? Okay.
But again, we haven't seen any details yet. It's as they go to Hartford, they'll have formal bills brought up with hopefully more details. But some of the concepts they're talking about at this point are somewhat nebulous, but I think they're going to be fleshed out. And whether that's going to be quick enough to get to a special session of the legislature in whether it's August or September or whatever it is, still uncertain, but it wouldn't surprise at this point. But that means it's going to be a very short time to comment on what could be very far-reaching proposals that could impact all the communities. Forget just Darien. This is something that would affect 169 communities.
One of their pillars or platform items in there is the reconstituting of that transit orientated. The state could take over any piece of property that's within a half-mile train station. They want to put that thing in there. One of the things that me personally I don't like that's in there is they want planning zoning commissioners all to be appointed and not elected. Some of the people on the phone that I was in the conference, one of those guys is an appointed position. I personally like us being elected. I mean, we might run unopposed, but we're all elected by our peers. If we do something wrong, we can get thrown out tomorrow or thrown out in 2 years. So this commission, whoever these people are, want to de-cigarettes, they want to have people appointed. They had a press conference today on the steps of the Capitol. It was on the south steps. I watch Channel 12 News every day now because it's the noise that's in my home office versus a radio. It didn't make the news, and it was a 12 o'clock press conference. So that's something that Jeremy's really looking at. We have Glenn Chalder, who's also on the case. That guy's really smart. He knows all the zoning codes. He's working with other towns in a related issue to that. Darien, the town of Darien has to do an affordable housing plan. Some of those other towns we talked about, they want us to do ours first. They want to copy ours. And I'm not it's serious. And Glenn Chalder may get hired by us. We haven't decided anything else. And obviously you 5 people or 4 people have to vote for that too. But the concept we're talking about to do the affordable housing plan, which is due in July 2021, is that right? July 2021.
2022.
July 2022. It's still in July 2022. Some of us might not even be on the commission in July 2022 because there's an election in November 2021. But we're probably going to hire somebody a year in advance to do it. Glenn Chalder is doing a couple of those, but we had also had a conference call with Jamie Stevens and I think and Glenn about the 2 related problems. So that's something we're watching. It may come down the pike, between now and November. I don't know. That's a special
the
session.
affordable housing plan. Relative to that, there was a couple years ago a law passed saying that towns have to do them, but the state of Connecticut Department of Housing didn't give guidance. Just a few months ago, the Department of Housing hired a consultant to work on giving towns guidance for that document. Well, certainly during the whole COVID thing, their work has fallen behind schedule. We do expect to get that report or guidance or document, whatever it's going to be, sometime in October. And once we get that, we'll be able to meet again amongst the commission and myself and Fred and discuss what needs to be included in such a plan. So after whatever break we get in August, and once we get that feedback, we'll be able to talk about it amongst ourselves and see where we go from there.
3 last points on this kind of related topic. The other towns and one of these goals of this group is to add accessory dwelling units, which is effectively if you have a garage in your backyard, you can put an apartment on the 2nd floor and rent it out to somebody. They're called ADUs, accessory dwelling units.
Don't we already allow that?
We don't really, you're allowed to have them, but they can't have a kitchen.
Okay.
You know, so if your son, when he comes back from college, he can live above your garage as long as he doesn't have a kitchen. We're very strict on what those are. Jeremy sees, you know, pool houses that come forth and there might be a stove or a microwave or something. Say again, Karen?
Sorry, I don't want to tattle on people. Sorry.
The other towns want them. These affordable housing people want them because they think that you know, people that don't have great means can live in these things. But you don't get any credit towards affordable housing or moratorium. 2 other quick items on here. One of their goals is to reduce parking at multifamily sites, have less parking so they can build more units and less parking. And another goal is, what's the other one I want to go? One is it's not bad. They want us to have training. They want all planning and zoning commissions to do continuing education, which is a giveaway. And what was the last one?
Regionalized zoning. Land
Yeah,
use
it's regionalized zoning. They want to monkey with fees, change our fees that we can't pass on people's review fees to the developer. It's the final thing about it, relative to our town. When I was on that phone call with the other people, I said that we have a school capacity problem. So if, for argument's sake, if we added a whole bunch more of multifamily housing in our town, you're going to tip the scale and have to build another school because Board of Education's got limits on schools. We already have enough portables. The other towns, be it Westport and Wilton, they're on the opposite side of that argument. They're mothballing schools. So they'll put in affordable housing or multifamily housing, and they got school capacity. We don't. You know, on that conference call, I told them that we're building a new school at Ox Ridge, and it's going to cost us $65 million. We have to build another one at $65 million. That's kind of Darien's dime. You know, we're not getting any of that from the state. Bridgeport doesn't have that. So in terms of my report, that's pretty much it. The only other thing, 2 things. One, I have an OPC meeting tomorrow morning with the OPC people. That's at like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. I think it's later. It's usually earlier. If anybody wants to bring up something, you know, I can bring it up. Everyone wants to come sit in the audience.
Is it virtual?
I think it's in person. That's one thing. And the last thing is, I don't know why, but did you get this? The newspaper wants to know if we're having sidewalk sales in July.
Sidewalk sales is a good question. We just got an email from Susan Cater of the Chamber. They're trying to, in light of COVID, they got a couple of things going on. You know, a lot of stores obviously just reopened and they're trying to get back on their feet. So originally sidewalk sales were pushed back, and usually they like creating a festival type atmosphere, bouncy houses and other things. And I think the emphasis this year is going to be on shopping locally and shopping safely. So they're going to have a lot less event type activity. And Susan Cater and the Chamber will soon be announcing the revised dates and more details, but there's been a kind of a change in the environment that sidewalk sales will be running this year, but there will be, they're going to even call it something else. So it won't be your traditional sidewalk sales.
We have nothing to approve. We're not.
Nope, those are always approved by the zoning officer, temporary basis.
Okay. So that's it. If anybody wants more information on this desegregate Connecticut thing, which is a political issue, and it jumps at them. I mean, Kara, I know, has the email or the thing. Anyone else wants to get into it, go. You can do it.
Yep, we'll send it to the link.
We'll send that link to everybody.
Yep.
And I did a write-up for someone else, so I can send along the write-up I did.
It's pretty scary, but you know,
Right.
supposedly if you go against it, you're like a racist.
So it's not-
I'm just TV7. That's the way it came to me. Good.
not-
Steve,
But it's definitely a game changer in terms of how Connecticut and other sort of northeastern New England, East Mid-Atlantic states have traditionally done zoning, along with how schools are locally controlled as is zoning. And I think that's important, both for understanding your area, understanding your school population, understanding the changing demographics, your expected population growth and whatnot, which all sort of plays a part in why you plan and zone a certain way and how you also contemplate school policies. So local control is really important. And I think that's sort of one of the main takeaways, despite some of the more scary things the group will try to say, or, it's the importance of maintaining local control or local voice over development and planning, which I think is a very unique thing and leads to the high quality and high desirability of Mid-Atlantic and Northeast and New England type of areas, which are still considered very highly desirable, and people continuously want to live in those areas and move to them.
But in fact, she said
information on Sarah Brown, and she's actually a really impressive person. She is an architect and a lawyer. She's married to the mayor of Hartford. So she's really bright. She's really politically minded and motivated. She's really smart, and she's very connected. So
the last thing I want to add to what she said, because yes, I think that's one of the key words. They want to take away local control. I'm a local control guy. I mean, I think that's what I've always liked. I think Darien's a great local control. That's supposedly a bad word now. The other thing that's, and I'm going to stop, they want to delete the word character from all laws. So we call it, like, we want to maintain in our town plan, POCD, I think the first tagline at the beginning is that we want to maintain the New England character of Darien. The word character is illegal. You're supposed to take it out. I'm like, really? Okay. That's it for me, right? I think that's it. Yeah.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Steve,
I'm sorry, Jim. Yes.
I don't know whether this is the appropriate forum, but I'd be interested in having an update from Jeremy on what's going on with the Palmer's development. I mean, they kicked everybody out and put up the fence, and
we can find out more. There was tractor trailers there this morning, dropping off Coltech units at like 8 o'clock or 7:30. I don't know if they were cutting through and they're going to the other side, but they were pulling in that curb cut by the old Glen Liquors. So we'll check.
Federal Realty's moving along. We're working with David on getting his first permits for Corbin, getting him moved along. I think the Palmers are temporarily on hold.
We'll look into it.
We'll get back to you.
thanks.
Jeremy, I'm sorry. Jim's question just reminded me. There had been, and I don't know if it got to you guys, and I can't remember where I saw this or heard of it, that there's blasting and blasting damage to homes and cars. Did you hear about this?
I can explain it a little bit.
Yeah.
This might have something to do. Are you talking about Federal Realty?
I think
Right.
so.
I guess what happened, my understanding, and I've heard it third hand, is that someone was driving down West Avenue towards Norotan, going eastbound, and Federal Realty, as you know, is doing a lot of work in that area. And apparently the claim was made that some debris or something hit their vehicle. And the complaint came into town hall. A different department, not our department, reached out to Federal Realty and said, look, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen and try to resolve this? So that could have been what you heard was.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like it.
Yep.
But there's
We
been
gotta
no
figure out
further.
what that is before, we gotta figure that out before kids start walking to school.
Well, I agree. I think, yeah. But as long as you guys heard about it and that there sort of hasn't been an ongoing issue or that it's sort of being managed.
Yeah, it's a one-time thing, and I think they've made some changes in response to that, which is
Okay.
Thank you, Kara. With that said, 9:45, entertain a motion to adjourn. Kara's smiling. She's not, oh, Larry goes first. Kara gets the second. Sorry, Jim. All's in favor? I think an eyeball. There you go. Thanks, everybody.
2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, next meeting is the
28th.
28th, and then we're off for the whole month of August. We'll see you one more time before September 1st. See y'all. Good night. Thank you.
All right.